Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Also, a warm welcome from my side for attending this Turnitin workshop. Okay, so why do we use Turnitin? It is for fostering academic integrity within UNISA. Academic integrity is what the value or the value that the institution holds for your qualification. Okay, so it is most important that we utilize a tool to help guard against academic integrity, which would include, academic misconduct, so that we can uphold academic integrity. Misconduct would refer to things like plagiarism and ghost-written content, etc. The program with Turnitin would also serve to protect student intellectual property, in other words, to help protect your work against other individuals that might plagiarize from your work in the future. Okay. Academic integrity is supported within the institution via different policies and procedures, and the use of Turnitin is also in support of these options. They are listed on the slide. If you've not read through all of the policies and rules of conduct, please do so. If you've read them before, please read them again so that you make sure that you have read the latest or updated versions of the various policies. They contain valuable information to help you and to advise you on how to approach your work within UNISA. Most important here is that all communication is done via your My Life email account. That account does need to be active, as that is how UNISA will communicate with you, especially in respect of originality checking matters, as your student profiles are confidential. Before we continue, I need to give you a warning. This is a warning of protection for your own personal benefit, and that is that you are expected to upload your work yourself only within the formal UNISA submission space. In other words, there where you are going to log in with your My Life email credentials. Do not upload your work in duplicate. So what is meant by that? It means that you do not give your work to anybody to upload on your behalf or to run a so-called originality check or utilize the assistance of individuals that offer Turnitin services in the sense that they will generate a good report for you, etc. Okay. Firstly, it is unethical to upload your work in a different Turnitin account at a different institution where you are not a registered student. It also means that it does not only compromise that institution, but as well the position at UNISA that can be to your detriment if that would have been done. Because we cannot protect your work outside of the space. Also, be very careful of those individuals that tell you that they will run Turnitin for you. They make use of fake licenses or stolen licenses, again, compromising the integrity of your work. And going forward, what we have also noted was that many of these individuals, they steal your work and then they sell it off to other students. So this is, yes, an alarming warning, but it is there to protect you and to make sure that we can assist you in the best way possible. Yeah. So Turnitin is integrated with My UNISA. That means you do not have to request Turnitin. After you've registered with UNISA for your master's or doctorate studies, you will receive a welcome notice from the UNISA Turnitin team with details. Please note there are certain processes that need to take place after you've registered, so it doesn't mean that you are going to receive this email immediately. Okay, it might take a couple of weeks or up to 30 days before you are going to receive this invite. In any event, you cannot start using the Turnitin unless you've started working with your supervisor. Okay, so when you are going to submit your work within MyUnisa, your originality reports will run automatically. So this email that you're going to receive will tell you where to go and where to upload your work, and then everything will run automatically after that. There's just a short note here for coursework masters, so meaning when you do have different module codes, with requirements that you need to fulfill. For your regular coursework modules, the reports will run when required. In other words, where you have a task that needs to be fulfilled and it is uploaded on MyUnisa, a report will run for that. It is only your research module that would go through the Turnitin research space, and you will see that on your profile in MyUnisa as well. Okay. Do note again that all communication is done via your MyLife email. Okay. Your welcome notice will indicate that you have to log into My Modules. So although you are a postgraduate student, you are going to submit your work for Turnitin processing within MyUnisa as part of the academic integrity process within the institution. Please be advised, you remain within the same Turnitin submission space for the duration of your study or research. Okay, so in other words, when you've received your welcome notice, it will indicate a year or a group where you have been allocated and you are going to stay in that space, even if it takes you 2 or 3 years to complete the qualification. You would remain in that space, and that is going to allow you to continuously work. Once you've started, no re-enrollment whatsoever is required, you would remain in that specific space. Okay. So when you've logged in, you would go to My Modules and you would see that there is a drop-down arrow. If you click on that, on the list will be the specific codes of registration, and then you will see that there is an M&D Turnitin space. Okay. So your welcome notice will show you an image. It will tell you where to go. It looks similar to this one, to say that that is where you need to go to upload your work. Okay. When you upload your work, the only requirement we have on the Turnitin side is that you have to accept the Turnitin EULA. This is the end user license agreement. The nice thing is you only have to do this the first time. In other words, the very first time that you come into the MyUnisa space where you're going to start, you're going to upload your draft proposal, and it will give you a pop-up notice to ask you to accept the Turnitin EULA. You need to click on the orange button. So although it is already highlighted in orange, you actually have to click on it so that you accept the Turnitin EULA. This is to confirm your profile, and it assists in protecting your submissions going forward within the Unisa Turnitin space. Up until the point that you have not accepted that EULA, it will say awaiting EULA. Once you have clicked on accepting the Turnitin end user license agreement button, it will give you a quick thank you note. It will pop up immediately to acknowledge that you have accepted this Turnitin EULA, and it will then remember going forward. This is also how we apply authorship recognition within the document, but I will shortly, when we go to the options, explain that to you. Okay. So your work will remain protected. Okay. So you need to protect your work in a specific way when you are going to upload it for Turnitin processing. So the proposal, so when you start out with your studies, this is straightforward, as well as the final or your fully completed study of research right at the end when your dissertation or your thesis would go for examination. these are the requirements then. You have to prepare your work in Microsoft Word, specifically the .docx option to submit, and you need to include your title pages or front pages. These assist in protecting your authorship. So you have to include things like your name, your student number, the qualification details, when you have a declaration, an index, or an abstract. All of those need to be included as they are required for evaluation or examination or review of your content for the proposal. You also need to include the bibliography or the references. These serve as confirmation of the study or research content within your document. So everything just as it is going to be reviewed and to see whether you met the certain academic requirements to proceed with your work. And then that is for your proposal. And at the end, we have your completed submission. Again, we require all of the title pages as well as the bibliography and the reference list. But this is then again right at the end of your study or research when you finalize your work for examination. In the interim, you are granted the option to upload your chapters so that you can work together with your supervisor on fulfilling the academic requirements for your qualification. For your chapters, there is a specific requirement. You only need to include a heading for your chapter content. So like this example, this is a little table you would put in at the top, or you can just simply type it up on the first page, your name, your student number, the title of what you are uploading. So if this is chapter 1, the draft, then you would indicate as such, and the date when you upload. And then directly you include the body or the content of the chapter. For your chapters, these are interim. Okay, so these are there. Can we call them your stepping stones on the road to fulfilling the requirements for your qualification? It is not expected to have the bibliography or the list of references included. So only the content. So this will allow you and your supervisor to focus directly on the content of the specific submission. Of course, when you have in-text citation with your references made within the content, those remain. It is just the list at the end of the chapter which is not required for the bibliography. And then, of course, always remember that your chapters should never be combined. You upload them separately. Okay, so the default will allow for 6 chapters. If it does happen that you only write 5 chapters, or if you have to write 7 chapters, you can drop us an email and we will assist you accordingly in that regard. Okay. So the Turnitin process, what happens with your document? So once your document is received, it will be queued. Okay. This means that it needs to go to Turnitin. So my UNISA is going to take your document. It will see that it requires Turnitin. It will send it to Turnitin. When we receive it at the Turnitin end, it will be processed, a report will be generated, and then my UNISA will collect the report and attach it to your submission. So the IT department has requested that we allow for a 48-hour window for them to fulfill this requirement. It usually does not take that long. It really takes a couple of hours to go through the whole cycle. It rarely takes longer than 24 hours to obtain your specific report. It is just a window to say that this is the grace period that the IT department has, because as you can understand, UNISA is a huge institution. We are seen as a mega university with the volumes that need to be processed. So when that report is completed, it will be attached and it is going to be available to both you and your supervisor. That makes it very nice so that you can both have it open and you can discuss it via phone or via a Teams meeting, and you can engage with your supervisor on the report findings, and your supervisor will guide you and give you the necessary advice. You do have 3 options to upload for your proposal and for your chapters. Okay, so in other words, you can do a draft. You will see when you go into that submission space for your proposal, there would be a draft option, then there's a revision option, and a final option. So you do get these 3 opportunities. Make sure that once you've done the draft, that you first discuss that report and its findings with your supervisor before making revisions, because this is the reason why we use Turnitin. It is to encourage academic integrity and so that you can learn how to present quality original work for your qualification. Okay, once you've done your revision, then again, discuss with your supervisor report findings before you upload the final version. Once the proposal was submitted and you've done your final proposal, the chapter options will open. So the chapter options are not going to be open immediately. So first you upload your proposal and then the chapter options are going to open. So then when you reach the end of your study, okay, so in other words, you've done all your chapters, you've worked very hard over the past couple of years, and now you are ready for your work to go to examination. You need to upload your full dissertation or thesis, so all inclusive, so that a comprehensive report is generated for the examination process. This is only a formality. So no changes are needed anymore at this point. So there is only one option for the final to be uploaded. Just keep that in mind. Okay. When your document was sent to Turnitin, it will show queued. So my UNISA will show you where in the process your submission is. If it says queued, please be patient. This is not an error. This is the process. It is queued, and within 48 hours, it will give you a report. Okay, so this is not an error. It simply says where it is in the process. Okay. If you get a message, so you will see that to the left here, just below the MS Word icon, we have a blue edged page with an arrow in the bottom left corner. That is your icon for Turnitin. And if it says error, or if it gives you any sort of message, it will show you a blue circled question mark. Click on that question mark to see why there is no report. Okay, so in this case, the error says the uploaded file appears to be corrupt. So if your file is corrupt, there will be no report, and it will tell you the reason why there is no report. So you would need to review what was uploaded and then upload the correct file. If the submission was fully processed, it will display with a similarity index, and it's going to be attached to your submission. It's on a color-coded block. Please note, the color coding bears no meaning. In other words, it doesn't mean if it's green that it's good or if it's red that it is bad. Okay, so it's simply a color-coded block with your percentage, and when you click on it, you would be able to open the report. What are you going to find within that specific report? When Turnitin receives a document and runs an originality check, the content of that document gets compared to different repositories within Turnitin. So the first one is a subscription repository. It compares to periodicals, professional journals, and other publications. It also compares content to internet repository, that consists of both current and archived sites, and then there is a paper repository, or it is referred to as submitted works, and this would be a repository for all papers previously submitted by Turnitin users. So not only within UNISA or within South Africa, also within Africa. So the majority of universities in Africa also make use of Turnitin, as well as institutions on other continents. So this is a global system or a worldwide system, and all of those submissions would go into the repository. And then when it has compared the content, it will generate an originality report. Note that this is not a plagiarism report. Please do not call it a plagiarism report. Okay, it is an originality report. It will also check the integrity of the submission, to identify authorship, and to guard against academic misconduct in this process. Okay. The non-original findings would mean anything within the content which is not original to the author of the submission would be highlighted. So obviously, if there is copied text from other sources, that would be highlighted. If there is ghostwritten content, whether human or otherwise, it would be identified. Discipline-related terminology, names and titles, direct quotes would be highlighted. Okay, so because it highlights everything that is not original, but it's not necessarily plagiarism. Okay, so like if names and titles are highlighted, can you change those? No. Do you need them to use them as they are? Yes, definitely. You have to, but they will be highlighted because they are not original. They are matched with different sources, but it is not plagiarism. It is only highlighted because it is not original, but it doesn't mean that it is plagiarized. Also, your similarity index, the report percentage, would mean that the content, it is similar to that percentage with other sources in the database. It is not a plagiarism percentage, so please do not call it that. It only indicates the non-original content in there. Okay. And here we have an example of what a report would look like. So when it is opened in your browser that you've used, when you click on that similarity index, and we also give you this instruction in the FAQ list, so that would be the list of frequently asked questions. I am sure our program convener will share that with you as well, including the presentation and this recording. So on that FAQ list, everything said here is listed as well, and you can refer back to that. So you click on the similarity index to open the report, and it will open on a tab in the browser that you are using. And then display to the left would be the content of the submission, and to the right is a source overview. So it will give you a list. How it works is it's color coded, just simply for ease of reference, and it is numbered. So we will start with number 1, always in blue, and in the text to the left, you will see that there are portions of text highlighted in blue and marked with a little number 1. So if we could scroll down through this whole document, we would find lots of other instances where there is a little number 1, and the text associated with that would be highlighted in blue. That would mean everything highlighted in blue, marked with the number 1, matches source number 1 in the column on the right-hand side. So this is an internet source. It indicates Taylor and Francis online, and it says here 26%. This is your individual source match percentage. It means that this percentage, it says 26% of the content of the submission on the left matches source number 1. So 26% of the content here matches source number 1. Number 2 would be a green. We've got a 7 there. Here we have a number 3. So it will start with the highest match and then it's going to decrease. Okay. Number 3, an example here. We've got purple highlighted text and it is indicated as 3. So all the little number 3s throughout this document with text associated, highlighted in purple, match source number 3, and it says 15%. In other words, all of the number 3s in here amount to 15% of the content that matches source number 3. And these are the ones that we are interested in, the individual source matches, not the overall similarity index. Okay, so understand that your individual source matches are not cumulative to your overall index. In other words, it doesn't mean you're going to add these together and that's how you get the similarity index. The similarity index is a separate calculation for the content at large, but we do not look at the similarity index. We look at the individual matches. Now, I know the burning question for everybody always is, now what percentage would be acceptable? There is no acceptable percentage for the similarity index. Why? The reason being, UNISA does not tolerate plagiarism or any other form of academic misconduct. Okay, so that is why there is no acceptable percentage. Because remember, Turnitin does not say that it is plagiarized. Turnitin simply says it is not original. It shows a match. Okay. So if plagiarism is present in the document, it is going to be unacceptable, regardless of what your similarity index is. In other words, if your similarity index, let's say it is 12%, that sounds very low. But when your lecturer or your supervisor would review the content and has analyzed the findings within the report and found that everything was acceptable and it meets with the academic objective for that specific submission, then that 12% could be acceptable or it could not be acceptable. Because if blatant plagiarism is identified, it is going to be unacceptable. The same with something that is, for argument's sake, 20%. Okay. If it is analyzed and reviewed, that percentage could be acceptable. Or if there is plagiarism or any other form of misconduct in the document, it would be unacceptable. So we do not look at the similarity index. We ask the question on what is original within the content, and then we look at the individual matches. And for these, we give you a guideline of 5%. It means that each one of them needs to be less than 5%. So clearly, number 1, that says 26%. This is way above the guideline of 5%. So we need to review and why this is so high. It can be because of overutilization of one specific source. It can be due to excessive use of quotations, for example. Okay, so you need to review this. You need to discuss this with your supervisor on how best to approach it, especially if it is a very significant source that you would use for your research. Even my number 4 that peaks out here at the bottom, that's 9%. It is way above the 5% guideline. So we need to review what was used or how it was used and address this. So it doesn't mean that if it is less than 5%, it is simply going to be acceptable, because the question will still be asked, is there any form of academic misconduct within the document? Is there plagiarism present? and did the student or the author of that document meet the academic requirements, or has the author met with the academic objectives for that specific submission. So therefore, we give you this universal rule to say that the matches need to be less than 5% for an individual source, and that is to assist you. If you review those, automatically your overall index would also decrease. But the focus is never on the percentage. It is always on the content to deliver original work. Okay. So you have to paraphrase, you need to write in your own words, you need to use your quotes sparingly. When in doubt, cite your sources. Always. Always acknowledge, give credit to the source of the information or the idea or the concept. There are a number of workshops being presented by College of Graduate Studies. We do advise that you attend those. They would assist you in your academic journey to learn academic writing and to understand ethics, etc. in the research space. All right. Okay, so this is your guideline, and this will accommodate for all of the incidental matches. If I can quickly take you back to this slide. Okay, remember, Turnitin will highlight everything that is not original, and your 5% grace that you have for each source would accommodate for many of these things, like discipline-related terminology, like names or titles or templates that you have to use, or if you have like names or items or references that get highlighted, it is accommodated within that 5% per source already, and it would help you to guard against overutilization of a specific source. So it would also assist in protecting you from accidentally stepping into that trap of overutilization of a source that might infringe on the copyright of that specific source. Okay, so this is, in summary, there is no acceptable percentage. Okay, we focus on the content. Okay, we want to see original work. It is not about meeting a Turnitin requirement or a percentage or to reduce the percentage. It is about delivering original work, and your guideline is 5% for an individual match. Okay, always discuss the report findings with your supervisor. It is only through interpretation, report interpretation by the subject specialist, that academic misconduct would be revealed. There are certain conditions where a certain percentage of matching text would be allowed that would relate to your specific topic, for example, and that is why it needs to be discussed with your supervisor. Okay. For content support, always consult your lecturer or your supervisor. Okay, they know best. They are the subject specialist in that field, and they can also direct you to where you can find additional information. Read your prescribed study material or any other materials that might be provided by your department or within your college. And then, of course, the fountain of information is the UNISA library pages, where you can get guidance on research ethics, academic integrity, referencing styles. Visit the LibGuides regularly. They make huge efforts in updating this space, adding new information, putting in the latest resources that would assist you on your journey. So this is most valuable, especially in relation to the content that you need to produce. It would even direct you to literature that would assist you with academic writing, how to paraphrase, etc., to present your ideas in your own words. And this has brought me to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. So this is an overview of what you can expect to see It tells you how the Turnitin works, and now you are ready to upload and then discuss your reports with your supervisor, and that you can learn within that process. Thank you again.